the last day of our conference. Good and rested up from last night and ready to go, right? Great. This morning I have the pleasure to speak with you along with my staff about our school. And I do this all day long to parents and others, and so it's a real joy for me to be permitted to come here and share with you a little bit about Faith Lutheran School, Plano, Texas. Our format this morning is we have a slideshow where I will present some things. I have been at Faith Plano for about 5 years. And getting ready to move on to a new adventure. My family and I are moving to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and very soon I will begin studies to enter the Holy Ministry. And so Faith has been preparing for this for about a year. I informed them about in October of last year. And so with us today, we brought the interim principal, Mr. Timothy Merritt, and he will be taking over the reins of Faith this coming school year, and also a new pastor to our staff. He joined us last September, Pastor James Wilmer. So they will have some things to share with you also as we get on through this presentation. Some of the things that I'd like to share with you is why in the world did we even think about considering classical Lutheran education? What we feel is so different about CLE or classical Lutheran education. Give you a quick glance at our school, some of the highlights of things going on at Faith. Just an overview of how we made the transition. Faith Lutheran School began in 1971 as a Christian preschool. In 1980, we added grade 1. From there on, we added an additional grade. We were not classical at the time. We have just made the transition in the last 5 years. So we had a school of about 300 students when we started. Last year's enrollment, which was about 345 students. And then Mr. Merritt has been a teacher at our school for about 4 years, is that right, 5 years? And he has taught 3rd grade, and so we will let him talk a little bit about a teacher's perspective, and then a pastor's perspective, Pastor Bummer. Why did we consider classical Lutheran education? I want to start here with a rather lengthy quote from Luther. Everybody acts as if God gave us children for our pleasure and amusement, gave us servants merely to put them to work like cows or asses. He gave us subjects to treat them as we please, as if it were no concern of ours what they learned or how they lived. No one is willing to see that this is the command of the divine majesty, who will solemnly call to account and punish us for this neglect. Nor is it recognized how very necessary it is to devote serious attention to the young. And the quote continues. If we want qualified and capable men for both civil and spiritual leadership, we must spare no effort, time, and expense in teaching and educating our children to serve God and mankind. We must not think of only amassing money and property for them. God can provide for them and make them rich without our help, as indeed He daily does. But He has given and entrusted children to us with the command that we train and govern them according to His will. Therefore, let everybody know that it is his chief duty, on pain of losing divine grace, to bring up his children in the fear and knowledge of God. And if they are gifted, give them opportunity to learn and study, so that they may be of service wherever they are needed. Thus says Luther. Besides Luther's admonition in the history of Lutheran education, and looking at how can we best implement a Lutheran education in our school, we also had some concerns about current American progressive education. Our current American educational system, both public and private, even in some of our Lutheran schools, and notice I say some, not all, does not provide an education able to successfully train children to serve, in Luther's words, both God and man. How do we know this to be true? Some of this I shared at the last conference. Recent surveys of Missouri Synod youth at the National Youth Gathering indicated that many of the church's youth do not hold to the historic teachings of the church, which are based entirely upon God's Word. A report issued by Reverend Dittmer. How do we know this to be true? Just as disappointing, actually the same report. By the number of parents in Christian church are less likely than their children to believe in only one supreme God, which we have heard much about the last several months. The triune God of the Old Testament and New Testament, to stay married and to believe in the inspiration and infallibility of the entire Scriptures. As a nation, we continue to see our children blown away in international academic competition, referring to the Third International Math and Science testing. While these same children feel good about their failures and shortcomings, rather than a longing to fully develop their God-given intellect. And for those of you that remember that report, the Americans who scored low on that exam thought they did great. The ones, I forget who exactly scored the highest. Who was it? The Koreans felt as though they did very poorly. If I remember right, the Japanese did really well on that. And did you hear that they are revamping and changing everything to more progressive line of thinking over in there? Have you heard that? Amazing. They want to be more American, they said. What has our current American progressive educational system taught us to embrace diversity as a worldview and to put self above all else? What has our current American progressive educational system taught us? To reduce God's Word to a resource for character development, and to accept only biblical views held by the majority. What has our current American progressive educational system taught us? Simply to honor man rather than God. You see, our concern in wanting to use a different kind of educational model in our school. And for those of you that know R.L. Dabney, he had it right. This late 19th century theologian accurately predicted today's educational system. He said, Christians must prepare themselves for the following results. All prayers, catechisms, and Bibles will ultimately be driven out of the schools. Prophetic. So what is so different about classical Lutheran education? Well, the way we think. Our educational worldview is Christian, specifically in our school, Lutheran. Word and sacrament, law and gospel. Student achievement is a priority. and the way we act. Catechesis is the #1 priority. God's Word is taught in its truth and purity. Luther's Small Catechism is a commonly used book. Instruction reflects the sound, tried, and true educational philosophy of the Trivium. And to help some of the progressive thinkers that come along, we can think a little bit of Bloom's taxonomy, which I know Pastor Rondo says related that in a previous conference. And I think it's very helpful. Curriculum reflects the Trivium, and specifically at our school, we fall mostly in the grammar and beginning logic stage, although there is some rhetoric that plays in. Just a glance at Faith Lutheran School. We started 5 years ago by adding Latin and logic. That Latin was added in grade 3. We do teach formal logic in grade 8 at our school. We also had a CLE, Classical Lutheran Education Retreat. We call it the North Texas Classical Lutheran Education Conference. And we had one of the premier speakers of Classical Lutheran Education speak, Pastor Joe Wallace. And he did an excellent job, and many of our teachers were won over by his presentation. And I still thank him to this day for that conference and his willingness to come and stay at Texoma Lutheran Camp. We've also had another retreat since then, where we had the esteemed Garwoods come and present, President Garwood and his wife Betty. And also another excellent conference held in North Texas. We began, actually Faith started among the Lutheran schools in our area, a academic poll we call it Scholar Poll. And we just wanted someone to compete with. So we began this academic competition, and we won. We were pretty excited about that. So everyone's like, yeah, you just want to do this because you want to do that. We also had an ongoing math contest, and at Faith, one of our weak points when I came was our math program. We did decide to implement Saxon math 5 years ago, and it wasn't too long before we started winning the math contest at Lutheran High School in Dallas. In last year, 2002-2003, we've seen in the last 5 years a 17% increase in student enrollment. Last year we had a student enrollment of about 345 students. We don't know exactly what enrollment is going to be this current year, but we are expecting a loss in student enrollment. We haven't quite put our finger on it, but we do know that many of our schools in the Dallas Metroplex, whether they are Lutheran, non-Lutheran, whether it's the Jesuit school, or Plano, are taking a loss in enrollment. And the only thing that we can figure is the economic times. We've had recently, in the last several years, over 15 children and adults who've been baptized as a result of the Holy Spirit working through the ministry of our school. We thank God for that. We use the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, and I know that's not the greatest measure of achievement, but that's what we currently use. Our 6th through 8th grade this last year tested the 99th percentile, which is the highest percentile. And our lowest, I don't know which grade it was, but we test from kindergarten through grade 8, and we had someone was down the 95th percentile, I don't know which one. This is kind of an interesting comment. We are retaining Asian students, and Asian students, I don't know what it is, but they tend to seek out the best education available. We had very few Asians in our upper grades, and we're just now starting to see 1 or 2 Asian students staying through now even in the 5th grade, so we hope that pattern will stay. We offer several honors courses. These honors courses are actually typical public school 9th grade courses that our 7th and 8th graders take. We offer Honors Latin 1, Honors Spanish 1. We offer first year algebra, second year algebra. We had 4 students complete second year algebra last year. And also physical science as a 9th grade course. These courses, if the students go on to public school in Texas, Faith has developed a good rapport with our public school system, and those courses will transfer on a regular transcript to their public school of their choice. Our foreign language program is Spanish and Latin. Being in Texas, you almost have to offer Spanish. So we offer conversational Spanish in grades kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade. It is all spoken back and forth by the lady who teaches it is LCMS Pastor Wyoming. He works in Hispanic ministry in the area. Then, in 7th and 8th grade, the students have a choice between Latin or Spanish. In grades 3 through 6, everyone must take Latin. So the reason that we started offering, it's the greatest reason now, but it's why we did it. Some of the schools that our students were transferring to wouldn't accept Latin as a foreign language. And so we still offered it, but we felt compelled to also offer Latin or Spanish. They would accept Spanish. We have probably about a 50-50 split. Some of our students go to Latin, some of them go to Spanish. And of course, when they're finished, they do have a regular high school credit. It is a high school level course. Our music program, outside of what we do in the classroom, we have 2 vocal choirs. Both of them sing music that they prepare for worship. We have worship among the student body, which one choir sings for. Then we have worship among the, on Sunday morning, which the other choir sings for. We have about 70% non-members in our school, non-Lutheran. And so some of those students will go ahead and be in the choir that sings in chapel, and the others will be in the one that sings for Sunday morning. We also have a hand bell choir, which we find a lot of our boys, 7th and 8th grade boys, because their voices are doing crazy things. And so we get them moving with the bells, and they do a wonderful job, by the way. You would never think that basketball players, etc., would be so skilled in music. We also do the recorder, and we do have a school band. In grades, the band will be in grades 4 through 8 next year. And it's actually several different bands, but this is one of those. In our science program, we use, in the upper grades, we teach physical science. Our thinking behind this is we didn't want to fall into the American tradition of offering something that is a mile wide and an inch deep. If you've heard that in the curriculum, it's very shallow. So we tried to study a specific subject in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And 8th grade, we chose physical science, 7th grade biology, and 6th grade earth science. We use other resources, but we also use as a basic text for that, the Bob Jones University Press. I know that there are some other great resources out there. That's just what we use. The other students also, we have a single science teacher that teaches science next year, 3rd grade through 8th grade. A wonderful teacher, and has a lot of her own resources as well as using Bob Jones University Press. In English, we use the Shirley Grammar, which many of you are familiar with in grades 1 to 5, and then in our upper grades, we use John Warner's English. Our math is Saxon math, and some of you have commented that there are pros and cons. the Sax and math, and we readily acknowledge those things. But for now, once you invest in Sax and math, you're sort of stuck there for a while. And so we do not say that it is by any means a terrible series at all. As I've shared with you, we've seen many great results with the Saxon series. I think that the classical Lutheran educator is always looking at how to improve. So we are always looking to say, well, it's because everyone else is using Saxon, maybe there's something better. So we want to keep looking to see what's going on. In our art program, we use an artist of the month. And our teacher takes an artist and studies that artist and then tries to emulate some of their work and some of the projects that they do. And that's our basic. She uses just a plethora of different kinds of resources that she has put together. Some of the things that we do, we use an outdoor education program all the way kindergarten, actually preschool through grade 8. They get some experience outdoors. The upper grades go on overnight, 3-day, 2-night trips. We do a Shakespeare dinner theater in grade 7 and 8 where they actually put on a play. They come dressed up in all the Shakespearean garb and put on a show as well as provide dinner for us. The 7th graders actually provide the dinner, the 8th graders provide the show, and it works out very nicely. We do a tour of Texas. Of course, that's like touring a nation, it's a big trip. And then we do go to D.C. in the 8th grade, which is typical in see many of our Lutheran schools. I went to D.C. when I was in school. Mr. Lomar.
Do you have a full-time art teacher? Is that taught on all levels?
She's not full-time, but she does teach all of them. And she's not a trained, certified teacher, but she's an excellent teacher. History, geography, civics, I don't even want to mention this because it's in progress right now and I don't even want to share with people what we're doing right now, so that's kind of in the closet. We shove that away. But we have much improvement and been encouraged by what we know what's going on in the Wyoming schools, what we heard from Shepherd the Girls and other people, and brought us to school, etc. So we'll be looking at different things to help us accommodate that weakness in our program. We, in our literature program, especially in the upper grades, is a novel studies. Reading, of course, is not from a phonetic standpoint in the lower grades. Our worship for last year was, we had a Wednesday chapel, and then we had daily devotions. There is some talk about changing that, especially having a pastor that serves, has his focus on the school a little bit more. With having a congregation of about 1,000, Pastor Robert Hill is very busy, and we have not had daily chapel led by the pastor. This coming school year, we'll have 3 pastors on staff. Last year, we actually had 4 pastors on staff. And one of the pastors may very well take over daily chapel. Religion program, we've heard this from many of you. We use the hymn of the month. We use the scripture of the month that all the children memorize. Interestingly, one of the basic resources that we're using right now is a Northwestern publisher. We use a lot of supplemental material, but when we review the CPH material, excuse me, Mr. When we were looking at that, we just weren't ready to go that route, and we like Northwestern a little better. Some of the self-made materials that we've seen from Zion Academy and other places looks great. Just right now, we're kind of, it's interesting that when you tie into something financially, you feel like you need to try it out and work with it for a while for these decisions. Quickly on how we did it, if you want to put it that way. Being that I am very involved in, and I know some of you are not so keen on National Lutheran School accreditation, but I've actually served very willingly and hopefully influentially on the LLSA in Texas. I serve on the commissioners. I'm one of the 10 commissioners in the state of Texas, and actually the chair of the North area of Texas. So what we did was we basically wrote out a vision plan so that everyone saw in written form what we're doing. Everybody said, well, what are we doing next? We shared with them this written vision plan, we called it. It had a written vision statement, had goals, objectives, and had target dates. When do we want to implement Latin in grade 6? When do we want to implement? And right now, we're carrying out that 5-year plan, and the 5th year we're looking at history, geography. So we did not do it in 1 year. We could have afforded to do it in 1 year. The vision statement, just to give you a brief idea of what I'm talking about, was a written statement of what and where, just for your benefit, where you want your school to be in 5 to 10 years. For example, Faith Lutheran School will provide an education rooted in historic Lutheranism and truth. That was the basic vision statement that we had. The plan is composed of goals and objectives. The plan is based on strengths and weaknesses. Identify strengths and deficiencies in your curriculum. One of my easy moves. I inherited a staff that was not necessarily 100% total classical Lutheran education. Some of them were still. But when you inherit a staff of 15 full-time teachers, you just don't get everybody to flip over like this. So we try to point out strengths and weaknesses in our curriculum. We have many weaknesses, we felt. Teacher training, which at that time was basically what the district offered. And while there were some good things the district was offering, we felt as though that there were some things that they weren't offering. Administrator training. Oftentimes, we find administrators, people whose heart is in the right place or a basic understanding of classical Lutheran education, but they know nothing about school law and other basic issues that you need to know about in order to run a school. And so we took a look at where we are with administrative training. Spirituality of our school, worship, and there could be others that I could challenge you to brainstorm about. Goals and objectives. We wrote the goal would be such as Faith Lutheran School will use the tenets of classical education to ensure a quality Christian education for every child. An objective under that would be Faith Lutheran School will implement formal logic in grade 8 during the 2001 school year. For those of you that are familiar with accreditation, it's very simple. Once you have your vision, you know where you're headed, then what we did is we shared the vision. I suggested here to identify the most influential person or people within your organization. Basically what I did was I went to the women's group, the men's group, church council. I had an article in the church newsletter that I always put the classical Lutheran ed in front of them. Every time I went to a conference, I gave a review of the conference and how great things were and all the great speakers and the worship and everything. And so I just kept it in front of our congregation in our school. All right. Those of you that are just starting the process of transferring, thinking about becoming. Some suggestions I have. Be informed. Read classical books, classical literature. Get involved in a classical education association. And here's where I put my plug in for the Consortium. We invite all of you to become members of the Consortium, and we hope to be able to provide more and more opportunities for you. Right now, the main opportunity we have been providing is this conference. And we hope to be able to offer even more. And there are some of us that are working on those ideas. And if you have any ideas, I would encourage you to share them with myself, or Steve Steve Pine or Phil Brandos or Ed Beath or share them. Just share your ideas. We are interested in hearing them. I've suggested subscribing to a non-classical periodical because I always want to know what the other people are saying. And engage in conversation about classical Lutheran education. And I wrote the BJUP rep, the Bob Jones University Press rep, because he was one that came into my office one day wanting to sell me some textbooks, and I said, well, I don't know if we're going to be buying any of your textbooks. You know, we're looking at this classical education thing. And he said to me, oh, no, you're not going to do that, are you? And I said, yes, yeah, we're excited about it. And he had had an experience with a school. And I knew the school he was talking about. I didn't know if they called themselves classical, but it was a very poor school. They had used it's like they put the name classical there to try almost as a gimmick. But the quality of the school really wasn't there. And that's one thing I'm very conscientious of. If I'm going to go around saying we're a classical Lutheran school, it would be better to make sure that we are really involved in that process. And so I used to use the phrase, we're getting into it, because I didn't think that we were quite there. And when are you ever there? Now I think that we're right in the middle of it, and we're going to stay there for a while. I hope so. Mr. Mayor, I'm sure Pastor will keep up that good work. A suggestion about your position in your school. Are you an implementer? Are you someone that can go back to your school and say, this is what I think we ought to do, and be the kind of person that can actually implement it? An implementer would be like someone like a pastor, school principal, headmaster. Or are you someone that's going to have to influence someone? That's what I would call a supporter. And depending on your position within your organization, you're going to think about, how am I going to share this vision in order to bring about this positive change? Prepare yourself for both praise and criticism. And I mentioned a recent one that I received. I won't take the time to read it because I want to get these two guys up here. But basically, just recently, we have received many letters of praise on our program. Many letters of thank you for the challenging curriculum. Thank you for teaching the faith. Thank you for worship. Those are by far the majority of the letters. We've also had letters, I received one last year that said, we think your curriculum is too hard. And we think that you ought to lay off. And then they re-enroll their child next school year. Are you ready? Suggestions that I have found of the last 5 years of experience of, are you ready to begin? The top 10 indicators. School principal and senior pastor are on board. Faculty is open to change that will increase student achievement. Faculty has an excellent work ethic. School and congregation practice a single mission. You have the resources, time, talent, and treasure. Other areas of school ministry are in order: discipline, administrative presence, adequate facilities. Administrator has the authority to implement. By the way, if you're trying to write these down, if I can copy these, just let me know, I'll send them to you. The Board of Christian Education is on board. Congregation is committed to Word and Sacrament ministry. And you have committed, this is the prayer. All right. If you'd like to quick write down my email if you've got any questions. School phone number is 972-423-7448. Be happy to visit and talk with you. We are by no means experts. We are people in the trenches just like you. All we can share with you is our failures and our successes. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Timothy Merrick. He will be the interim principal next school year. And he has also taught third grade the last 5 years of faith.
I found out I was going to be speaking here the day before we flew up, so he asked me to speak on two specific areas. One was to give a teacher's perspective of the process of change that we went through. And I would say that Steve did it in the correct way. And that is, he didn't come back from the first time that he came to one of these consortium things and say, guess what we're going to start doing? He came back and presented it in such a way as to get us on board without realizing that he'd already made a decision that's the way he wanted to go. And for those of you that are considering doing this in your school, this is not a quick process. If you come in and try to ramrod it through the first year, you're probably going to find an awful lot of resistance. It's a process, as he mentioned, that we tried to do over a several-year period. And just be prepared for that it's a slow process. You need to get your staff on board. There are several reasons that there's a lot of reasons for resistance to it. I'll just mention a few of them here. First of all, of course, nobody likes change. Change is a scary idea. And so that was kind of the first reaction that a lot of the staff had is resistance to change. Secondly, we already had a reputation as being a very good school. And so when you have that type of reputation already, people say, well, if it ain't broke, why fix it? I can't. And so there was some of that resistance as well. Then, once we all realized what more we could be, the next bit of resistance that I saw from the teacher's perspective was, your teachers will probably come to the realization at some point that they're not really qualified yet to be a classical teacher. Because a classical teacher is supposed to be the expert and the source of all knowledge in the classroom. And the textbook is there to help out, but you're supposed to be the expert on it. And it's not going to take your teachers too long to realize that they're probably not an expert in every subject they're supposed to be teaching. And that can be a little bit frightening as well. And they have to be open to being willing to learn about that. The second thing he asked me to talk about were just some of the things that we do in third grade, that we've been doing in third grade. One of the things that we did is we started doing a little bit of departmentalizing even in third grade. We were able to do that very easily in our school because we have more than one class at the third grade level. And what that allowed is the very thing I was just talking about. Grammar and English is not my thing. I am not as strong in those areas, but I'm very strong in science and math and some of those areas. And so I would take her class for science while she took mine for English. And we would do trading back and forth in areas where we each had strengths. And that helps, especially in the transitional period, to be able to do that. Another thing that we did is we implemented doing novel studies. Now, in the lower grades, we're in a transitional phase still of going to completely novels for teaching literature. And I say we're in a transitional phase because not all teachers have automatically the ability to take a novel and figure out what skills to teach using that novel. The other third grade teacher, it just so happened, was wonderful at that. She could write textbooks. And so she teaches the novel portion of it, and we still do use basal readers. But we use basal readers only part of the time. We do novel studies for at least half of the time in third grade, and we still have basal readers in first, second, and third grade. And part of that is because it takes a while before you can transition your staff into being able to take a novel and make sure that they get all the skills and all the things that have to be covered using that novel. Because if you don't have those teacher aids that we're all used to, you have to be able to develop them. And so in the transitional phase, we did not choose to go straight out of the basals automatically. At some point, I would guess that we would do that. Some of the novels that we taught in third grade were Sarah Plain and Tall, Stone Fox, those were some of the ones that we did. Children, by the way, much preferred the novel portion to the basal portion. They would much rather read the novels. They really got into the novels. What we did is for half a quarter, they would do a novel study, and the other half of the quarter, they do basal. And back and forth like that, and they really look forward to getting to their next novel, so they really enjoyed doing that. Another thing that we did, of course, is instituting Latin. Now, I'll tell you the most difficult part of implementing Latin in third grade for me was learning it myself. The children picked it up much easier than I did, much more easily than I did. So they did a much better job of doing that. The other thing that we do, which I had always done this anyway, but it does fit with the classical approach. We require them to write essays in science and social studies even in third grade. Now, we keep them down in grammar stage level, which means the essay is regurgitation of facts that they've memorized. We do not ask them to compare and contrast questions on an essay. When we do have an essay that's going to be a little bit more involved, I take it to Mrs. Wildauer, the other third grade teacher, and they do it as a 2-point paragraph using the Shirley grammar method. So we're able to tie them together in that way as well, if I know it's going to be more advanced. Also, at the third grade level, I give study guides to go with the tests and all, and I always list what the essay questions are in advance so they know what I'm going to ask them and they can memorize the answer that I'm looking for. In the first half of the year, I give an example of a lousy answer, an okay answer, and an excellent answer. And of course, most of them choose to memorize the excellent answer or something roughly equivalent to it. Third graders like to please the teachers. The other thing that we do, we teach study skills in the third grade level, including I teach in social studies and science in both of those subjects. They fill out an entire spiral notebook by the end of the year with notes, because I teach outline style notes. And to begin teaching that, they're simply copying what I tell them to put down. To make it a little bit more enjoyable for them, I put all of my notes on PowerPoint, and they seem to enjoy that more than me just writing it on the board. They enjoy when it swirls and explodes in the middle, and they really thought that was cool. So they did do that, but we taught them outline style notes. By the middle of the year, I started asking them, what do you think the next point is that I'm going to put up here? Because we've also taught them the skills of identifying main idea and details and so forth. By the end of the year, their big game is to see if they can write down the next statement before I tell them what it's going to be. So they become very good at this. We also do teach logic in the third grade level. It's not a formal official class. We use what a lot of you probably are already using, which are those brain teasers and those things that force them to use their brain to go through a series of steps to get to the answer. Of course, on the third grade level, we're not going to do anything real complicated. The other thing that our school already had that really fits well with the classical is a climate of respect. We require respect for authority, respect for others, and respect for the learning process. That has always been a faith standard, and that's something that's very important. And I'll just give you one example of what I mean by respect for the learning process. We don't tolerate people not turning their work in. We have a policy that goes with that leads to detentions, suspensions, so on and so forth. We expect that the child pays attention during class, participates in the discussion, and does their work. So respect for the learning process is very important. And the only other thing I was going to mention, we already covered, which was that we use Saxon math and we use Shirley grammar. He was mentioning that we're in transition on the whole history thing. First, second, and third grade are getting a new textbook series this next year that we're going to use that I was very impressed with. It's from Bob Jones, and it teaches history. We're getting rid of the social studies club things. We're not going to teach how we all live along the roofs and this and everything. We're going to teach history and geography. And the way that Bob Jones did it, we liked because they taught it as often as possible, they taught it like from a first-person point of view of a character that might have been living in that time of history, and what it would have been like for somebody living in that period. They did a lot of that, and we were impressed with that. So that's a basic overview from a teacher's perspective of what this process was like. One of the comments that I heard a lot of from my fellow teachers was, this doesn't sound that much different from what we're doing. And I think that that's a mark of many Lutheran schools that you'll find is that they're probably doing some of these things already. You have a question?
Yeah, you said, you spoke in terms of teaching respect within the school. You mentioned 3 areas. One was the learning process. What were the other 2?
Authority, respect for authority, and respect for others, meaning fellow students.
This is a tradition, I mean, this is a characteristic of a lot of classical schools across the nation. But do you have the students stand when an adult walks into the classroom?
Yes, we do, and that was the faith standard before we became a class.
How did you first implement that?
That was implemented long before I was ever there. As far as I know, that has been a faith standard since the beginning. That was always in our school. We also do not allow students to address the teacher saying, yeah, no, those type of things. And we require them to say, sir, ma'am, those type of things. But that's been a faith standard for a long time.
Okay. How did you teach yourself Latin? And then in turn, how did you pass that on to the 3rd graders?
I actually took the Latin primer, and I had the other 3rd grade teacher who had Latin in high school, 3 or 4 years worth. The first years we did it, I didn't teach Latin, she taught it, and I sat in the back of the class because she taught it with our classes combined, and I did all the exercises the children did, I took all the quizzes the children did, and that's how I did it. And as far as memorizing the vocabulary, memorizing is not a problem for me, memorizing words and those type of things. What was difficult for me was the pronunciation, which of course, since it's not a spoken language anymore, we don't get that uptight about that anyway. But we wanted them to come out of 3rd grade pronouncing it the same for both classes, and that's why I went through her program.
What materials did you use? Marshall.
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 Mars Hill.
Marshall, thank you.
Should you make some provision for the additional challenge to accelerated students as opposed to those that are slower?
Yes, we have done that at our school. That's how we have kids in Algebra 2 in the 8th grade year. We used to start doing that at the 3rd grade level, and there was not agreement as to what level that should begin at among our staff. And after looking more at the trivium and at the levels of development, it was felt that 3rd grade was too early to start that process. That most children cannot reach the maturity level to be able to do that. And so we start that in 4th grade with the acceleration.
How do you do it?
Well, they have to meet 2 criteria. They have to have an aptitude for the subject, and they have to be self-disciplined. Self-disciplined enough to understand, and we make this quite clear to the parents, they're going to take a lot of homework home because they're going to go through a double pace. Basically, in 4th grade, what they would do is end up going through the 4th and 5th grade book in one shot. And then they're a year ahead, and then they can work ahead. Some of them also work with tutors over summers before and things like that, where they actually came in. I don't know how often they came in, but I know some of them did an extra book to get ahead over the summer.
Is that possible in all subjects or just a few of them?
We would like to do it more in all subjects. At this point, Sax and math lends itself very easily to doing that because it's designed for that. And so that was the first area that we started doing that in. We also, you said with verbal, you might be able to speak to that a little bit more. We don't do it at the 3rd grade level as much, but because it was felt that they were not mature enough to handle that.
Right, the only subject that we really do that with is math. But we feel as though that our program basically the program is geared toward the students that we set the high standard, and many of them are just doing what they can to stay there. So we feel as though the basic curriculum is in and of itself advanced. If that answers your question, but we thought we could do more than that. We want to get Pastor Wyoming. I know we're running up. We'll probably way past time. Excuse me. So we'll. Why is your question again? Go ahead, sir.
You follow it.
Yes. 180 days. I don't know the class of education. Well, just a personal bias here. I believe that parents are ultimately responsible for their children's education, not me as the school principal. I do that with my own children. I believe that if my children fails to learn in any school, it's my fault. Now, I'm not going to blame the teacher for it or blame the school system for it. So, having that in mind, we do in our own family implement, our children aren't just sitting at home watching television while I'm here at a conference. They read books, they continue with playing instruments or whatever we have them do, just at a slower pace. They don't also have the academic rigor of the school year. Let's get Pastor Homer.
While he's coming up, I'd like to address that for a second. It depends on where you live in the United States. I was talking to a public school teacher here in Wyoming. If they were to go full year right here, it'd be a disaster because they need, there's a bitter winter here, and you need that time of view out there right now. A full year is good because then you don't have to go do a review and waste the time of review every year. I would love to go full year. But see, I'm in Houston, Texas, and the same thing is true in the southern states. It's pretty hot in those months. So you start thinking of what best works for you. If I lived in California, I'd be a full year.
It seems like what parents do is they play the vacation Bible school involving the organ during the summer.
And review,
Church.
I hate that.
Well, I won't take too much of your time yet. I'm Pastor Wellmer. I came on board in September of '02 as an associate pastor, also called pastor to the school. So I work with the principal quite a bit. There are some situations that need pastoral care regarding discipline issues or parental things. So I took care of those. Led some parenting classes and this and that. Interacted with the parents and also the many non-members, and so I got my hands in that. Regarding chapel, I believe it's one of the most important aspects of the school. It brings a staff and students around the Word, preaching. Mount Hope, we have the sacraments, and something we'll perhaps maybe see if we can implement. But regarding, we use the historical liturgy and matins, they have it memorized, they know it so well. It's amazing to see even the preschoolers excited about singing hymns. We were at a school social, and one of the preschoolers came up to me, and she just had to sing this hymn to me, But, and so we not only have a hymn of the month, which we encourage them to memorize in the home, and the parents as well, but in the classrooms, we'll sing that often in chapel too as well. So chapel is liturgical. We use the hymns. Preaching is law gospel, sin grace. no object lesson type of thing. It's a message as if it would be like on Sunday morning. Naturally a little shorter though. But we're all gathered together. The 8th graders sit with the kindergartners, and so that's my aspect of it. We would like to start high school. We might do that in 2004 or perhaps maybe 2005. We believe that it would put a cap to, or I should say, take the classical education to the next level, particularly in the rhetoric stage. So we're hoping to do that. Keep us in your prayers. We'll be praying about it too as well. We have a lot of parents that are interested in it. The Plano School District is impeccable, but we're unique in that we are classical, particularly in the high school level. We would be offering Western history. I mentioned logic. We would like to teach Greek as well, with them reaching the full level of Latin, already Latin 4 in the 8th grade. So we'll see what we can do. But I came down, like I said, in September, and Mr. Pizzo said, well, share what you appreciate as a parent. I have 4 kids in the school, and Mr. Pizzo hit a lot of the highlights anyways, but very impressed with the high academic standards, the classical curriculum, and so I encourage all of you to continue your endeavors in pursuing that route. Do you have any questions for me or either Mr. Keyser?
I'd just like to say that rhetoric that you mentioned, and nobody has said this, but I think it's true. Tell me if I'm wrong. I think rhetoric really fits our Lutheran schools extremely well. We're teaching catechesis throughout the school. Rhetoric on the 8th grade level fits our confirmation class. We actually then apply what we're teaching knowledge-wise through the catechism to a way that they can share their faith with kindergarten students and 1st grade students on the lower level. Whether it's sharing their faith in a statement of faith or a prayer that they've written, that's the start of rhetoric. You could go even further with it, but I think rhetoric should be started on even the 7th grade level. And that might be a change from what Wilson and Sayer might say, but I think it fits our Lutheran schools better because of confirmation. I just want to share it.
One of the things, if I will, if I meant to mention, is that since a high percentage of our school are non-members, the opportunity to have liturgical worship is a great blessing for not only our members, but also for the non-members as well. I've got to tell you the number of parents that have come up to us and said, you know, I really appreciate the reverence and the holiness of worship. I wish we had that in our church. So it's beneficial for the students to hear that word in liturgy and yes.
Like I say, the human speed in the 99th percentile through the Iowa test really